My name is Kamps, and I serve as radioactive waste watchdog at Beyond Nuclear. We're based in Tacoma Park, Maryland, and we're a watchdog environmental organization on the nuclear power industry. And the title of my presentation is 20 More Years of Risk at Vermont Yankee, with a question mark on the end. And the areas that I'd like to cover involve tritium and its health impacts on human beings, as well as radioactive waste issues, and the decommissioning costs associated with each of those subjects. And I'd also like to speak about Entergy Nuclear's record at other nuclear power plants in the United States. So, a very important issue at the present time, as you already know, is the uncontrolled and unmonitored radioactive releases from nuclear power plants. The Vermont Yankee operating license includes what is called a general design criteria, which establishes a minimum of requirements for the performance of reactor systems, as well as structures and components. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission has established 2 of these criteria, specifically regarding the minimum requirements for the performance of systems that carry radioactive water. Under Title 10 of the Code of Federal Regulations, Part 50, Appendix A, Section 6, which is titled Fuel and Radioactivity Control, there is a criterion number 60, which requires that, and I quote, the nuclear power plant shall control the release of radioactive materials in gaseous and liquid effluent. There's a second criterion, number 64, which requires, and I quote, the monitoring of radioactive releases to include the effluent discharge pathways. In 1979, the NRC also issued a circular number 79-21, to the nuclear power industry, which included the Vermont Yankee atomic reactor. The NRC informed the industry that because of numerous leaks, overflows, and spills of radioactive water, the agency was requesting that, quote, preventive measures, including periodic functionality tests, be instituted, and that inspections should be performed to verify the integrity of systems that could cause an inadvertent release. Unfortunately for the public interest and the public health, the nuclear power industry and the NRC itself have by and large ignored these criteria and the preventative maintenance that was foreseen so long ago. This is at the heart of the buried pipes issue. So Vermont Yankee is currently seeking a 20-year license extension. And as I said, we believe this is not in the best interest of the public nor of its public health. As a part of this license renewal application, Entergy and the NRC were supposed to have reviewed and assessed the adequacy of aging management programs for a whole variety of reactor systems, including buried piping that carry radioactive water. Underground piping is but one of a myriad of reactor systems that are connected directly to potential impacts on the health, safety, and environmental quality of Vermont and points downstream. The recent discovery of uncontrolled and unmonitored radioactive leaks from the reactor should raise serious concerns about the quality of Entergy's application to extend this license by 20 years, its aging management programs, and the adequacy and thoroughness of the NRC's own review and its oversight and enforcement at Vermont Yankee. Nuclear power plants have a wide range of buried piping systems. The amount of buried pipe varies from one nuclear power plant to another. It can range from 2 miles of buried piping in length to as much as 8 miles, connecting various reactor systems. Buried piping has been described by the nuclear industry's own think tank, the Electric Power Research Institute, as a spaghetti bowl bending and extending over the reactor site. Because the reactor is basically a boiler, various process systems are required to clean and control water chemistry in the reactor vessel. Such reactor auxiliary systems are necessary for normal operations, as well as part of the backup system in the case of abnormal operations. The condensate storage system, which is in the news these days at Vermont Yankee, is a part of this high-pressure cooling system. Uninspected and unmaintained buried transfer pipes from the condensate storage tank are already known to be the source of many of the uncontrolled and unmonitored radioactive leaks happening at nuclear power plants across the country.
Can I stop you for a second?
Yes.
You're using terminology, uncontrolled and unmonitored. I'm sure if I had the entity folks sitting in the chair or the regulatory folks, they would probably take issue with that statement. So could you elaborate on why?
Yeah, there is a significant issue to keep in mind, and that is that the Nuclear Regulatory Commission permits releases of radioactivity from Vermont Yankee. This includes tritium, so direct discharges on an ongoing basis into the Connecticut River under permit. What's different here is that the buried pipes, apparently, the investigation is underway at this point, I suppose, are not a part of these intentional permitted releases. So these are unintentional, and in that sense, because it is such a surprise, I mean, we just learned about it a week and a half ago, these are unmonitored and uncontrolled releases into groundwater. So the industry has publicly admitted that buried piping is not accessible for routine inspection and maintenance, which contradicts the 1979 NRC circular. The industry and the NRC have essentially, unfortunately, adopted a leak first and fix later philosophy, despite the NRC requirements and previous NRC guidance. So I'd like to shift into discussing tritium and its human health impacts. Tritium is a radioactive, thank you very much. Tritium is a radioactive isotope of hydrogen. Its nucleus is made up of 1 proton and 2 neutrons. It's chemically identical to hydrogen, which has one electron in orbit around the nucleus, as does tritium. Like hydrogen, being the smallest and lightest element on the periodic table, tritium is highly mobile in the environment. It permeates most materials, including steel and rubber. Tritium is naturally found in the earth, in the environment. It's generated by cosmic rays that interact with the Earth's atmosphere. But a very significant source of artificial tritium is the nuclear power industry itself, as well as nuclear weapons development and test detonations. Tritium has a half-life of 12.3 years. The hazardous persistence of tritium is 10 times that long, so over 120 years at a minimum. It is generated and released from nuclear power plants, both as a radioactive gas and as a radioactive liquid. So in nature, because of cosmic radiation, the level of tritium that's found in natural surface waters is in the range of 6 to 24 picocuries per liter. And that's in comparison to the levels being found in the test well at Vermont Yankee, 30 feet from the river, that are in excess of 20,000 picocuries per liter, as well as in the radioactive waste building, where it's in excess of 2 million, in the neighborhood of 2 million picocuries per liter. Tritiated water is chemically identical to water and can exist in all of water's forms: liquid, ice, steam, and vapor. Once tritium is released into the environment, it's considered to be a highly effective distributor of radioactivity because it is very mobile and can go anywhere that water can go, which is everywhere.
So what does that mean?
The
Distribution, a highly effective distributor.
Yes, it will go where water goes, and so that means in plants and animals that it can incorporate itself into the tissues of plants and animals, including human beings. And in human beings, hydrogen is the vast majority of, for example, our DNA molecules.
So tritium itself is radioactive.
Tritium is a radioactive form of hydrogen, and so it is mistakenly portrayed by some as harmless in human health. But the problem is that it can integrate itself into our biology at the most intimate levels, right down to DNA, which is the basis of our genetic material.